Hey, very good morning, good afternoon, good evening. My name is Sean.
This is Alex.
And you're listening to another episode of Coaster Kings Radio. And today we're talking about... Well, today's an epic preview of Epic Universe. I kind of ruined that. Let's record.
I thought that was kind of cute.
Oh, okay.
Well, no, I think it was cute.
So what we wanted this episode to be is not just another, latest news on Epic Universe situation. Doesn't include the latest news as of October 10th. Yes, it does include the latest news as of October 10th. But since a lot of people listen to the podcast maybe a couple days after it comes out, or we recorded before new news develops, and Epic Universe is trucking along at such a rapid pace that, the news is always going to be quicker than you are. So instead of doing that, and I'm sure you've seen all the videos and heard all the podcasts out there already, we're just going to take a deep dive at where the resort's kind of at right now, what they're working on, but then we're just going to go through all of the cool major areas and major attractions, kind of dive into what kind of rides they are, what we can expect from them, and then kind of dive in on that and kind of go on tangents and talk about what we're excited for. Our preview of Epic Universe from our standpoint. I'm really excited for that.
We're unpacking Epic Universe.
Oh my god, it's like one of those unboxing videos, but it's audio, and it's about a theme
We're
park.
Unpacking what we know. Because, we've never been, news people. It's not about news for us.
I guess we have been on the website and stuff.
But on stuff that's not getting reported, definitely.
And it's harder when you're making a podcast. You have time to, record it, production it, launch it, all the good stuff.
This is all about analysis.
Exactly.
And we are taking the collar off of our cat.
Yeah, there's a cat right on us, but not anymore.
Desk. All right.
So we'll start and talk a little bit about what to expect from Epic Universe when it comes to the opening timeline. As of right now, expected for summer 2025. Apparently they are on track. I mean, stuff is moving fast. It is going to be Universal's largest theme park, actually. Mm-hmm. Cost of a little more than $4 billion, which is a lot of money. Good for them. And the park will be using facial recognition for entry and potential use of it as well for attractions and going into the different areas. But that hasn't been completely, released yet on what exactly they'll be using it for. But it's patented.
Do you remember Fuji-Q Highland and how your entry to each ride was granted by sitting in a little photo booth? Yeah, and it would take your picture, but you had to you had to squat for every picture because you were so tall.
Yeah, I'm so tall compared to most other people. But
that's what this is reminding me of.
Yeah, because at Fuji-Q Highland in Japan, every time you go and ride, when you enter the park, they take a picture of you and they scan your ticket type, which our ticket included all the rides, I guess. And then when you get to each attraction, you wait for the queue and you get to the station. You stood into a little photo booth, and it would scan your face to make sure you had purchase admission to the ride, and then you were granted access to go in. I don't think I'll be used at quite the same level, but what we're hearing is that the facial recognition will be used. For example, say that Epic Universe is going to offer special events in certain lands. Then, if you enter the land, your facial recognition will be used to tell whether or not you're part of, say, a special event that has special access to that land after hours or stuff like that. Or there's even a concept out there that Epic Universe would be free admission, and then everything, all the attractions will require your face to be scanned in order to get access to that. I still don't know if that's really going to be the case of the theme park.
Yeah.
I don't know if the world is ready for a free theme park where the themed lands and rides are going to be facial recognition, especially when the rest of your resort already operates in such a way where it's single admission for all your attractions. I just don't know if changing that to Epic Universe is a smart idea. So I thought it's happening.
There's a temptation to make the hub of Epic Universe a hybrid between a main midway, a main street and hub sort of thing, and
a city walk.
A shopping district.
Yeah.
That's kind of what Shanghai Disney did too, because they have their Disney Town, their shopping district, which is adjacent to Mickey Avenue.
I would still say they're very much still separated from their portfolio.
Right, but it's sort of having two parallel to each other and serving similar purposes, where one has the main entrance and the midway leading to the front of the park, and the other one has the entrance right into the hub leading out of the park, and all the shops and stuff in between that are free to enter.
Yeah,
and then its own little entrance.
But it's not like there's ride entrances.
No, this is definitely taking it a step further. And I think the goal would be for them to make sure that the hub is full and that attendance looks like it's where it needs to be when the news helicopters are swarming overhead. And I think their hope is maybe, but if it's anything like what Disney can accomplish with like Disney Springs, where they attract all sorts of people who aren't going to Disney World, maybe they think they're going to attract people to Epic Universe into the hub who will then decide to buy a ticket or something to ride the rides once they're already there.
I just hope it doesn't become overcomplicated. I hope it's not one of those things where it's like, okay, so you have your existing resort where it's all pretty cookie cutter and straightforward.
Yeah.
And then we're going to go to Epic Universe.
Yeah.
And then suddenly your face decides which rides you can go on, or then you have to buy packages like, oh, I want to add Super Nintendo to my day. Stuff like that would get too complicated.
They started like piecemealing all of the areas.
So I'm just going to like really hope and almost kind of like rely on the fact that their current system works okay for them. And I think in the industry, we're not ready for even more complications. I mean, if we're complaining and the general public is complaining about the virtual queue at Walt Disney World for some of these attractions, and you couldn't even try to introduce this in Europe. Like, it just wouldn't work. If it's not simple and straightforward and good to do, Europeans are going to be like, absolutely not. So I don't know if, like, making it even more complicated by doing something new at Epic Universe is worth it. Anyway.
It may not be. I'm sure.
We don't even know if it's happening or not.
More than likely, it'll be a standard entry-exit procedure at the entrance. And then I think probably, like, realistically speaking, the extent of the articulating using the 4 different areas with their own individual entrance and exit would be more related to
special events
and consequently the individual areas having their own operating hours.
Yeah, which would also be weird, but again, a little easier to justify. Kind of how Disneyland Paris had special operating hours for some of their areas depending on the drone shows and depending on not Super Island.
Yeah,
the Marvel Adventure Campus would be open 2 hours after the park was open.
Yeah.
Some of that would, I think, work better. Perhaps that's what it's used for. Either way, the theme park itself, the concept of it is quite new because this is going to probably be the first ever theme park in the world where you have kind of like a big central part of the park, which is called Celestial Park. And then from there is these worlds, almost like Diagon Alley level worlds that are really immersive and inclusive with one way in, one way out. And not like traditional theme parks where themed areas have several entrances and they kind of, you can kind of walk through in a big circle, that kind of stuff. So the theme is Celestial. They're going kind of on this weirdly space exploration-y kind of vibe they're going for. I don't hate it.
They're really leaning into the name of the studio.
Yeah, I don't exactly know what they went with, but it sure is Universal's Epic Universe.
And I think the whole center of the park and the hotels, it's all supposed to be like a big planetarium, I think.
I think so too, but I must give them credit because I do like it's. I don't want to say it's a completely original, but it's if you're going to pick an overarching theme. And if you're going to be doing the portholes into every world, every universe, then honestly kind of going with this like intergalactic galaxy kind of vibe where like, a different planet for a different theme kind of, kind of dumbing it down. It's not a terrible idea at all.
If there's one way to take 4 intellectual properties that have absolutely nothing to do with each other and justify putting them in the same park, you can unify them by having like this hub world. That's actually video game lingo. Hub
Honestly, this is almost like the evolution of the studio park. Because, in the studio park, you can be like, well, it doesn't matter if nothing is related to each other because at the end of the day, we're just in a studio. We're filming all this stuff here.
These are all live sets.
But you can do that if you already have Universal Studios Florida as the park. So honestly, this is a really creative way of doing that in a very modern sense, which I'm excited for that. That's revolutionary.
And I think the aesthetic is something that is not super common. We don't see a lot of the cosmos done well in theme parks. So,
well, what's interesting is that it's outside. I feel like historically that kind of stuff is always indoor.
Yeah, so I think it's going to be a refreshing aesthetic choice, and hopefully the landscaping will be really strong to complement the architectural choices that they're making that are
well, what I wanted to actually add to that is it kind of gives me a bit of reminds me a little bit of Discoveryland, where because it isn't really trying to be that futuristic, but it's just kind of like a concept, like a style. I think it'll be kind of timeless, honestly, which I think is what's the right choice because The studio park was kind of outdated quickly because, again, it's trying to recreate something that's on Earth or what we expect to be the future. In case of, for example, Tomorrowlands. But in this case, I really do think it'll be a timeless aesthetic.
Yeah.
Anyways, moving on from that, talking about aesthetics, they're already currently working on landscaping. The biggest thing we can talk about is that around 3 of the roller coasters, there's already a bunch of trees being planted. There's a lot of topography differences being added by like building sand hills.
Doing a lot of terraforming.
And then, of course, exterior theming of the buildings is starting, which is exciting because usually the exterior parts are coming way after the interior parts. So that means that I think for a lot of attractions, we are getting, a lot of the interior work is already done and they are close to testing. For some rides, we already know that they're testing. So it's pretty exciting because in 2 years, it's a short window. Now, the park's opening in perhaps 2.5 years. That was a year and a half of soft open. That's not a lot of time to work with if you have to test and adjust, staff, finish the park. So I think the park is further along than we may even realize.
It's exciting. They're going to have to start getting their ducks in a row for like staffing this thing at the beginning of next year.
Right? And if you think about it,
beginning of 2 years from now.
We already know that there is currently clearance envelope testing for both the Donkey Kong roller coaster and Hiccup's Wing Gliders roller coaster, which we'll dive
the
in a little bit more.
How to Train Your Dragon
a
coaster. Hiccup is the black dragon, right?
I thought is Hiccup the guy's name?
Oh no, that's Toothless is the dragon.
Yeah, Toothless
is
like our cat.
The boy. Okay, got you.
Yeah,
I've never seen How to Train Your Dragon. I don't know anything about it.
It's been a minute, but I did remember liking it.
Yeah.
And that's funny because it's going to be the most elaborate land.
It's a sturdy franchise too because it's got 3 really successful movies, and they want to launch. That's going to be DreamWorks Entertainment's first live-action adaptation.
God, I was somewhere on, was it either Facebook or Instagram or Threads or something, and I saw someone posting that they were like a super hardcore fan of How to Train Your Dragon. Like, clearly the audience is out there. I just haven't. I mean, I liked it when I watched it, but God, it's not like I kept up with it,
Yeah.
But let's look at the resort a little bit more. We're talking about 3 hotels that are, well, obviously Universal London Resort is an encompassing resort, but given this is so far located away from the current existing resort, it's kind of like its mini bubble. And within that little bubble of Universal Epic Universe, there'll be 3 hotels. The biggest one being more big by appearance, not necessarily by size, but Helios Grand Hotel is going to be inside of the theme park. 10 floors, 500 rooms. And as of right now, there are still building floors, but they've already started exterior work too. So it's kind of like half the building is literally already put in the walls and the touches on the outside, and half the building is still stacking floors on itself. And then there are Stella Nova and Terra Luna, which I didn't like those names at first. You remember we were at
the you were like Terra Luna. That's
I'm like, how can it be the Earth and the Moon?
And I was like, well, no, it's because the Earth's moon doesn't have a name, so it's the Earth moon. It's our moon.
And Stella Nova is cute. It's not like New Star, whatever. But so these are 2 identical hotels, presumably in a lower price category. They are on the backside of the resort as well, but across backside of the park, but across of the road. And they are 750 rooms each. So that's a nice little 1,500 room capacity, which will be good. And the coolest thing about them is they're circular windows, almost like a spaceship. And then all of the exterior of the buildings are covered in these reflective decorative tiles that are just like a certain color. They were inspired by some building elsewhere in the world. I can't remember exactly which building it was, but as of right now, it looks really cool. I think we're going to drive by it later.
Yeah, I think we're going to go for a road trip. It's fun being able to drive to like our favorite sushi place or go to the post office or something and drive by Epic Universe and see how it's coming along and admire the glass tiles. What it reminds me of is like a giant blown up, semi-pixelated, like a 16-bit version of Starry Night with all of these celestial colors and a combination of like daylight and nighttime color palettes.
Yeah, it's kind of funny because in order for us to get to the grocery store we always go to, we're Trader Joe's kind of people.
Yeah. And
so, but we live kind of like in a Trader Joe's void on the outside of Orlando.
Yeah.
So the only way to really get our groceries, which I love doing groceries, is to go by Universal Epic Universe. So, no complaints. Especially Starfall Racers is so tall.
Yeah.
It's practically a hypercoaster, just kind of in the skyline.
It's really fun to see it from
cool.
all of the different angles.
And then back to the park itself, the central hub will feature shows. We're just going to talk about a little bit more of rides, food and beverage. all that kind of stuff. And again, there's going to be 4 themed lands around that with their own portal entry, which is, again, the really unique theme park design they're going for.
The one thing that I really love about the Grand Helios Hotel design, and it's something that another resort is currently employing, which is using the hotel as your backdrop for an area. So, like, Grand Helios sits at the very back of what would be the entrance, midway, and hub. It's kind of the area's
nice
Cinderella Castle, almost.
Yeah.
Like, that is the focal
back
point
of the park versus
that
in the
continues,
middle.
yeah. And Tokyo Disney Sea's Fantasy Springs area is also employing this with their new hotel at the back.
Not just that,
area.
you also have Chimelong Spaceship, which does it too, where the back of the spaceship is the giant
That's
hotel.
right.
And I think Chimelong is actually one of the first to introduce it, because when you enter Chimelong Ocean Kingdom, the original theme park, their focal point of the whole park is actually in the back of the park. So you look all the way out to the back of the park, where a giant whale shark, 200-foot statue sticks up. And you know where we also saw it? We also saw it at Hui Brothers Movie World, with that 200-foot tall Buddhist statues up there.
Their Forbidden City replica.
And honestly, it works well. I think shifting it to the back of the park is like a guaranteed backdrop. It's visible from every inch of the park.
It works really well in parks with lagoons, like central lagoons, like Chimelong, or like Islands of Adventure, where because of the success of Jurassic Park, they figured, you know, you've got your lighthouse in the front, that's like the park icon, but having the Discovery Center for Jurassic Park as like the central focal point once you finish your walk down Port of Entry and you're at the water's edge with the park around you. It's like, I think it's just the right way to bring your eye all the way up and through a park layout. And I think Helios is going to be such an opulent and cool canvas for all of the stuff in the foreground.
I think that in a way, what will be nice is, because this is the only part of the park, Celestial Park is the only part of the park that isn't like porthole, complete controlled, immersive environment where like all the walls,
the sight lines,
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So having it almost still controlled in a way where you have all of your natural landscaping with the 4 portholes, and in the future even more, and then having that kind of lead up to this giant building. In a way, it's going to still be immersive and
That's very true, because it's that,
by building that in the back, there's nothing left when you walk in that isn't covered.
Once you get past Helios, you have the other hotels, and then you have the property line. And with Helios there as your backdrop for the area, they don't have to worry about somebody behind, like on the other side of Destination Parkway, like building something that would be extremely visible and distracting from inside the hub area, because the hotel is right there in the foreground. And
not just that, all around the park, there's apartment complexes, Lockheed Martin's facilities are there, lots of power lines. Like, it's by no means a cute plot of land.
Yeah.
But I think by the current approach, they're just taking away the biggest worry that Universal's had for so many years, especially where they're currently located in the Dr. Phillips kind of corner. They've had that problem too. Remember when the Polar Coast was supposed to come and Universal was actively campaigning against it because it'd be visible from the park?
Yeah.
I think that they are just eradicating all the problems they ever had with this new concept. So good for them, honestly.
Even when you drive around, like on the Sand Lake perimeter of Epic Universe, they've done a lot of the landscaping and berm development between the public roads and the property line, and it looks so great. It's kind of a bummer now, because now you can't see Starfall Racers from Sand Lake right now, unless you're on the bridge.
Because of all the admin buildings and stuff.
But like all the landscaping that they did, even though it totally obstructs the view, it looks wonderful. So they're on the right track with that stuff.
So let's dive into the park. We're going to do a grand tour. Of course, we're going to start at Celestial Park, which is the central hub of the theme park, kind of divided in almost like a snowman-shaped 3 rings with bridges and water features. Biggest thing really is that truly from the back going all the way forward to the entrance, it is a set of cascading waterfalls. Love a good water feature. Hate to bring up Discoveryland once more, but again, it's very Discoveryland, having all the cascading water everywhere.
Yeah.
If that's not the most Discoveryland thing. And then let's dive right into Starfall Racers, which is the biggest roller coaster on property, I guess. I mean, for the whole resort.
It might be the biggest physical project on property. It covers a lot of ground.
It's massive. And the cool thing is, so that's for those that aren't super familiar with what Starfall Racers is, it's It's going to be a dueling Mack launch coaster. Both sides will be fairly similar in what they're going to do elements-wise, but the order of which is switched up a little bit. It's very much a racing coaster, which will be nice because now that we don't have dueling dragons anymore, that'll be cool.
Yeah.
And it is actually part of the central hub. I'm so surprised that they didn't find a way to build a Battlestar Galactica area somehow, and just because it's a franchise they own.
Maybe it's just because Battlestar Galactica is too serious and too dark.
It is serious.
It's scary.
But they did it in Sci-Fi City. Anyway, but perhaps it wasn't the aesthetic they were going for, because that's a little...
They've already got a couple of kind of scary areas, like, obviously Dark Universe is going to be scary. The Harry Potter area is pretty serious.
Yeah, it's
and
true.
Foreboding, and it's just, I think they needed some more lightheartedness for the project.
But yeah, 2 launches on the ride, and it's going to be... It's honestly like a massive, massive roller coaster, practically hypercoaster size. I think more of like... Think about, for example, the Flash or the hypercoaster in Turkey, the Mack product.
Oh yeah, the Lewa.
Yeah, those are just like big shape hypercoasters with inversions. This one's going to be large.
Or like if you're familiar with Hurricane Coaster at
Suzhou
Forest World, it's going to be that kind of scope. But 2, the track work for both of these coasters has been complete for a while now. They're 2 different shades of gold. Right, like one's
sort of one
is like a
more
bright
like
yellow,
a greenery kind of,
and the other
like a coppery. I don't know. It's hard to explain.
I'm colorblind, so all I can tell you is that one is a brighter color than the other.
True.
And the brighter one to me looks like it's more laterals focused. Some of the maneuvers that are necessary to go from racing to dueling involves some laterals to put your train in the right position. And from the looks of it, it looks like the yellow track is kind of designated as the one putting in the work for laterals for dueling setup moments. So I'm already looking forward to the ways in which, from above, it appears like 2 similar experiences that will be enjoyed by a lot of the same people, but different enough that they justify their existence and like being different. And I think people will have their favorites.
Oh, for sure.
I don't think they'll be so similar that they won't be. It's not like 2 sides of like Stampede or something.
Yeah, but
almost
it's not
like
quite as different. It's not quite as different as Julian.
Not as
was, you know.
True.
Which is kind of what I was trying to compare it to. The cool thing is, not just the ride chart being complete for a minute. We're talking ride evacuation paths are done. Landscaping around the second half of the ride is mostly done.
It looks great.
Grass, trees, all the above. I'm just waiting for the first test runs, which I'm sure someone here in Orlando will have time to catch video footage of.
If it's anything like how Velocicoaster went down, everybody's going to know about it
in the
middle
of the night.
Yeah.
And the cool thing is, on Mack coasters, we generally speaking don't really see custom vehicle designs like fiberglass work. It's usually just like almost just like stickers or wraps. However, for Starfall Racers, the trains are apparently really cool, and they have custom fiberglass pieces making the trains very unique compared to other Mack launch coasters, which will be fun because, again, they're usually just the same trains with different wraps.
Yeah, they all have like that Blue Fire.
Yeah, like exactly. Yeah. It's funny because the Blue Fire logo is not even that cute.
Yeah.
Next up in the area, you have Constellation Carousel.
This looks like a cute, like, I guess we don't really know what kind of ride it is, but I already appreciate like the presence of it, the bigness of it.
Yeah, that's pretty massive.
I just love that they're going for big, opulent, broad strokes. I think, like, architecturally, the building that houses the attraction is really cool. I want them to take risks, you know, and I think they are. Like, doing the hub with such a broad theme, with the constellation theme, it's the only part of this park where they can completely make something up. It's their own creation. They don't have a guidebook like a video game or a movie franchise where they're required to do something in that exact vein. And the closer they get to the source material, the better.
I hate to say that it's the only part because I do think that the Universal's Monsters
That's
franchise
true. They do have a little more freedom.
Yeah, a lot of freedom with that because those movies are like 100 years old, and so there's so much more freedom.
They have to do a windmill. They have to do like the building that they're using as the facade for the e-ticket is based on that large building in Belgium.
It's true.
With this area of the park, they're making some fun choices because it's really the only thing that they get to just completely, even in Dark Universe, they're beholden to source material. This stuff has to take place in Europe. It's got to be, 19th century or earlier architectural choices. This, the Constellation Carousel, they get to just do whatever they want. They just get to think completely outside of the box. And we're looking at a lot of sacred geometry, stained glass, a lot of elements of nature being elevated and distorted in an artistic way to fit the vision, whoever is the lead visionary for this area. And then with the coasters, you can only do so much. A carousel with a show building. Well, maybe not show building is maybe not the right word here. I guess the dome, the bubble that will house the attraction, I think is going to be a beautiful focal point, a highlight that will encapsulate the architectural style and choices that they're going for in this area.
Well, the nice thing is about this area is everything is going to be focused on those big rings, the big circles in that part of the park.
Yeah.
So having the carousel is perfect, whatever kind of attraction it may end up being. Wasn't there a rumor it was going to be a water attraction at one point, like a
twist and splash,
because there was so much pipe work around it.
I think that's all going to end up being decorative.
Okay,
which is great,
like water effects.
Yeah.
I just think keeping up with having a circle theme, obviously having something carousel-y is a smart move. And then right across from it, there's going to be a circular splash pad, which will mimic the fountains that are in the back of the park, which is the big circular amphitheater circle that is elevated. In which the fountain show will be at nightly or maybe even during the day. I'm curious to see how they may incorporate fireworks into that, given that it is really a circular theater. All sides of the circle are occupied. So I wonder how they would do that or how large it is. But either way, that is also in that area, which is pretty cool.
Do you think they're going to do drones?
Well, we'll get to drones in just a second because I think they're already going to do drones.
But for the show, do you think the center show, are they going to do the nighttime light up kind of drones that we're already seeing, or is it? I don't
think so, and I'll tell you why. They toyed with the idea for that. For Disney has toyed with it. Universal's toyed with it for their dark art show, which in Hollywood does have a drone component every night when they do it. I just think that the weather in Florida is so inconsistent. It's just the wind can be blowing every which way. Rain will just appear out of nowhere. So you have to prepare all these drones, and it's such a preparing process. It's not like a drone show just magically just turn on a switch and the drones just start flying. It's so much work.
Yeah.
And then you have to have them all lift off, and then you have to do their all synchronizing, which needs to be relatively still air in order for them to And I just think that the sheer amount of lightning storms on summer evenings here in Florida, the sheer amount of wind that will blow through out of nowhere, I just think that a drone show, Florida's just not made for drone shows. Doing it controlled during the day, which we'll get into in a little bit, perhaps. So a light drone show at night that requires hundreds of synchronized drones, I don't think so.
Yeah.
Again, on a different scale, maybe. Before we talk about that, which it is coming up on our show notes, I just want to round off the area real quick, what we know about the quick service and the stores and stuff. Yeah.
So they've been shuffling around the restaurant capacity for the hub of the park has changed. Their expectations that small quick service restaurants have turned into full service restaurants potentially, or full service restaurants have been shifted into something else. It seems like they're still not 100% on where they want. I mean, I guess they're 100% now, but it was definitely right up to the end that they were determining the restaurant and dining capacity that they wanted or needed for the hub area based on how much things changed. But it looks like they've settled on. So the Blue Dragon, is that Chinese food, or is that?
I don't actually know. I would presume it may be Asian cuisine.
Yeah.
They've got the Blue Dragon, which can be quick service towards the back of the park. Pizza Moon. Kind of a cute name.
That's kind of cute.
Moon Pie.
I think they wanted to call it Moon Pie, but that's a registered trademark.
Oh, is it? Okay,
yeah.
Because Moon Pie is cute.
Moon Pies are good. Have you had Moon Pie? It's a marshmallow cookie sandwich.
Oh my god! You know what?
I
think
you can
I know what it is because Mod Pizza has the Not Moon Pies, whatever they call it.
Oh,
unnamed.
The unnamed cake thing.
Isn't that because of they called it Moon Pie or something?
No, that is because they're a ripoff of Hostess Ding Dongs, but they're homemade.
Got you. And then there's also going to be a Nintendo store. We know for sure
it is a Moon Pie ripoff.
And the Nintendo store will obviously be located right by the Super Nintendo World Portal. I think that there's not enough room in the land to build a big store, so they build it outside the land, which is also very City Walkish.
Yeah.
So I guess we'll see.
Do you think? Well, are they going to do like? I guess the other areas wouldn't necessarily need to have a Super Nintendo World, or the other areas wouldn't need like similarly large hub-based.
Because I think the difference between Super Nintendo World, Super Nintendo Worlds can be very interactive in ways that I just don't think there's a lot of room for store space, especially not with the giant restaurant.
I don't think they're going to have.
And so there's going to be obvious gift stores that we already know about retail-wise in the other lands, you know. And obviously Potter needs a lot, but there's also two other Potter worlds already.
Is flushing out a whole city.
Also, Potter is
block.
Big. We'll talk about it a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay, let's get back to drones real quick. So there is rumored to be drones at Epic Universe, and those are supposed to be on a smaller scale. Perhaps flying dragons that will be going over the Isle of Berk land, which is the How to Train Your Dragon themed land. So that is the first area that requires a porthole to enter that we'll talk about. It's actually a massive land.
Yes, How to Train Your Dragon, Isle of Berk. They've got a lot of great thematic elements already in place. There's a lot of paint ready. Like, it's really, this area is the first area to really resemble a theme park. Like, you really, aside from coasters and stuff, thematic touches are going into place, and they're getting ready. There's a lot of stuff there that's, even to the untrained eye, is like ready to be looked at and enjoyed. So they've got, so they want to have drones with dragons and things. Didn't they do this sort of with like Death Eaters or something, or Dementors in one of the Harry Potter areas?
God, I feel like it was tested and maybe for Japan.
I think it was. I think it was
first.
Osaka for like their horror nights. They were like doing Dementors.
Yeah, I think
they
did that starting last year or something.
But the next obvious evolution of that would be to like have dragons and things flying around. Maybe bigger, more kite-like ones that are more ambient and less about like...
Yeah, they don't require like a whole synchronization of 100, 200, 300, 400 drones, you know?
2 Gerslauer Skyflyers.
Yeah, so the Skyflyers is actually an interesting choice in my opinion because, first of all, they're quite thrilling in my opinion for a land themed to How to Train Dragon, which in my opinion is more of like the family land in the park anyway.
Yeah.
However, I guess if you really don't want to flip, you don't have to flip. So like, you know, it's versatile in the way that you could either choose to go upside down a million times or you choose to not go upside down.
So How to Train Your Dragon, I think, is one of those franchises that really grows with you. Like, because the main character ages in real time between the movies. So like, he's an adult in the 3rd movie.
True.
So that's one of those things where I think it's actually... There's probably a surprising amount of like people in their 20s and 30s who are really into this intellectual property, just as many as there's like little kids that are into it.
Right. But I do think it's cool about the Dragon Racer Rally, which is the official name. So it is 2 Skyflyers that go in opposite directions, kind of mimicking, swirling around each other. And then there's dragons on the far ends, like on the weight ends.
And one is blue.
And one is red, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, which is kind of dueling dragons, which is...
More dueling dragons references.
Cool dueling dragons. But no. But it may just be a shout-out to dueling dragons. Because everywhere in the resort you find...
Well, now they can't call it dueling dragons because they have a haunt thing called dueling dragons. So
True. Because, you know, you have your dueling club in the Hagrid's Queue.
Yeah.
You have the 2 dinosaurs at the entrance to Velocicoaster that have their...
They're in the same position.
Facing, you know, and now you're going to have this. I think I kind of like that the legacy is so big that all these parks have kind of like a dueling dragon nod. That is cool. Also, you know, the Dragonland finally came to fruition in Orlando.
Yeah.
Another, what looks like a pretty much a mid-family but also kind of thrilling ride is their launch coaster. So they're getting yet another intimate launcher, which is called Hiccup's Wing Gliders. And it is, instead of a moving platform like Hagrid, even though I would kind of want to draw a parallel to Hagrid there, it's actually going to be this dual station, which is fine. No complaints about that. I just found it interesting because I kind of thought that they were like so on the moving walkway hype. But that's cool. Anyway, it's going to be 2 launches. It's going to be all around the area, which is cool. Lots of rock work and show scenes already being built. And there will be show scenes on the ride, which is kind of nice. Yeah, it's kind of like a Hagrid without all the fancy track switches, though.
Yeah. I know, did they say that this is expected to be more family-friendly than Hagrid or less?
Honestly, from what I can see, it looks like about the same, honestly.
I was thinking that, too. I feel like this is a bit more traditional in its approach.
It is more traditional, but Hagrid does so much like stop, go, stop, go, stop, go. There's so much more like pacing control on it. As for this, it has long stretches of it just kind of like blowing around the area.
I think that's why it has a double station instead of a continuous loading, because it takes a very particular kind of roller coaster that has a lot of block sections.
True, less blocking
to allow for continuous loading the way that Hagrid does. Otherwise, you just stop. You have to give yourself so much space between trains. I like this ride a lot. I love the layout. I love like the approach to it. I love that it has an uphill launch. That is like a Universal legacy and also yet another Discoveryland callback to the original uphill launch coaster. Space Mountain.
Universal Orlando Resort as a whole is just becoming launch coaster capital.
Yeah.
I mean, you've got Mummy, you've got Gringotts, you've got Hulk. You have Velocicoaster 2 launches. You've got Hagrid. 7 launches on Hagrid. You've got Starfall Racers. You've got the Wolfman Coaster we'll talk about in a little bit. You've got Hiccup's Wing Gliders. I mean, it's like launch. The
only coaster coming to Epic Universe with a lift hill is the Diddy Kong.
Oh, coaster. Donkey Kong has a launch too.
Does it have a lift hill?
It has a lift hill and a launch.
And a launch.
So I mean, like launches
all 5
everywhere.
Coasters are launched.
Isn't that crazy?
And one of them has a lift hill, and the other one has a launch that mimics a lift hill the same way that Hulk and Mummy have uphill launches that start out somewhat unassuming.
But yeah, I think it's really cool because it's gonna be long again, just like Hagrid. I think they saw such a success with Hagrid, they were like, "We gotta do it again."
Yeah,
it was a great way to draw people in. I'm really excited for it. It has tunnels. It goes around the water.
It's gonna be, I think, a bit more of a terrain coaster than Hagrid. Hagrid kind of keeps to itself, and it's not. There's one part right in the middle, right before you meet Fluffy. The ride feels a little bit like a terrain coaster where you're sort of bounding around in the Forbidden Forest. Yeah,
kind of like between the first Blast and the Screwed and the Spike is where it kind of feels a little bit more terrain.
It's kind of it's going to be nice that it's going to be a bit more of a traditional topography focused coaster versus Hagrid, which I mean is objectively still very much a coaster on a flat piece of land that's just extremely well disguised and has great landscaping and a lot of tricks. But I think this is going to really feel more like a terrain ride than any other coaster in the park or in the resort, for that matter.
Interesting. Okay, I can see that.
Especially with all the terraforming that they're doing in the Dragonland to make it appear more like
like a valley,
Northern Europe.
Right? Yeah, it's true.
So.
And then, of course, the land has the usual. It's got a candy and gift store, which is going to be themed to, like, the dragon housing on the side of the cliff. So we're expecting, like, dragon tails to hang out of it. This is going to be so cute. It'll be cute.
The dragons are going to be sitting up in their little houses. I'm picturing, like, a cat tree.
Yeah,
a cat condo full of cats, but they're dragons. And their little tails are wagging.
Which is kind of what that movie is kind of... I feel like it's definitely, like, the dragons are vibing like cats.
They're cat-like?
Yeah, oh, totally.
Yeah, okay.
Everything about it, especially Toothless, it's like a cat.
I love cats.
Like a black cat.
Maybe I should watch
it's like a little baby
movies. Bill. Yeah, it's like our black white cat, Bill.
Yeah, Bill. Anytime we refer to Baby Bill, that's him. And then we have the mead hall dining experience, which is kind of also from the movies, like the giant circular dining hall with the big pillars. That's coming, and on top of there will be like a decorative mound, force perspective. There's going to be the stage show, which, if I'm not mistaken, is the same stage show as Beijing, which Beijing has a How to Train Your Dragon stage show with like a giant flying dragon that comes from the ceiling, and it's called The Untrainable Dragon. I'm like 9%.
Wait, is it Beijing or is that in
Beijing?
Gulf? I thought it was at.
No, I'll talk about the stage show at Universal Beijing Resort to open.
So they have a Train Your Dragon show also?
Yeah, in Hollywoodland.
And it's different from the one that's at Motion Gate.
Yeah, because I don't even really know about the shows they have over there. I just know about the rides they have over there.
Because I know they have a stage show, too.
Interesting. Yeah, there should be more like the Universal Beijing.
That makes sense. That makes a lot of sense.
And right next to it should be Meet and Greet, which...
what is it? The Havoc Paddock?
That's what... Was that what it was?
Yeah.
Havoc Paddock?
Yeah.
And then there's also going to be a splash battle, like a river version, almost like PortAventura's Encore ride, which will be cool. I mean, this land is going to be pumped full. It's going to be a lagoon in the land. There's so much going on.
The splash battle is important for a couple of reasons. First and foremost, this is the park's only water ride that we're aware of.
Right.
I think it's pretty much, unless the Wolfman coaster has a surprise water element or something, like who knows, but probably not. This is the water ride for the entire park. And splash battles are conceptually really great, but they don't always do well in like regional parks or even in major parks if there's not enough traffic in the area. Like PortAventura's is really awesome. It's like a double size one, and there's like effects and stuff that you shoot, but like the rides really work a lot better when there's a lot of people around and you're like shooting people in the midway and vice versa. So I think this could be like the perfect splash battle application because you need a busy park with lots of people, kids who are trying to get wet, and then this one will be especially polished. I'm sure there will be theme elements like crazy. Like I think it's going to be, even though, I mean, I guess my first thought when I heard about this was that like splash battles are something that have been around for a while. Like, is this?
I don't usually associate them with like success, but or big crowds.
Yeah.
But Universal and the Resort with their Popeyes Jurassic Park of Adventure.
Well, that's what I mean.
Everyone always gets, they're so into it that I'm sure it'll be successful.
Like, it wouldn't be the first time that Universal Orlando took a concept that had already been around for like 15 years and did their version, and it was just so much better.
Also, it'll be nice to have an interactive edge to that particular water ride. And the last one, at least in the area, is going to be also a quick service restaurant, also under a windmill. It's going to be themed with Sparkers windmills. Might as well make it a Dutch theme park.
Oh, yeah,
anyway.
We got multiple windmills.
Here too is a restaurant under a windmill. So yeah, that's kind of routes out the
funny.
area.
I didn't even realize that.
There's a lot going on. And it's pretty big.
Oh, and the splash battle is called Fire Drill.
Oh, that's right.
So it's going to have like a firefighter theme. And I think that you're going to be training how to train your firefighter. It's going to be about learning how to put out fires that your dragon may or may not be setting. So I'm expecting like mock dragon fires and like dummies of dragons setting things ablaze that you will be responsible for putting out or something. I can only hope. I'm looking forward to it in any case.
Now, let's go clear across the park.
We're going to the left, yes.
Super Nintendo World. Let's talk about... So, the nice thing is about Super Nintendo World, for this episode purpose, is that obviously this is pretty much a clone of what we've seen already.
Yeah, this is going to be their easiest area. Well,
so it's easy to talk about. So we're just going to kind of run through what we know, how the unique application is for Epic Universe because of its porthole situation, which, again, there's also a porthole in the other two locations. But for this particular Super Nintendo World, just like Osaka, it's going to have two lands within one. You have your Mushroom Kingdom, you've got your Donkey Kong Country. In order to enter any of it, you have to go through Mushroom Kingdom by ways of, again, a porthole. This porthole is going to be the classic tube thingy. What is that thing called?
It's a pipe.
A pipe.
A warp pipe.
A warp pipe. So you're going to warp pipe into the land. In order to do that, the levels of the land, you enter the land on the second level, but in order to get there, you take an escalator. So once you go inside the porthole, which is in the side of a hill, you take an escalator inside the pipe. And
then when you exit, you exit on ground level.
Exactly. And and then there's like two levels down from there again. So it's interesting how they layered it out. I think it's more of like a visual approach.
I think it's really smart. I love the dynamic nature of doing like multi-story area buildings.
And it was very Phantasialand, actually.
I was just going to say, this reminds me of the Blues Town.
Yeah.
And the way that they've got rides literally stacked on each other.
Or even like Mexico or Africa. I mean, honestly, I've got all port. I mean,
I say Phantasialand
is like obviously the king of that.
Phantasialand is a theme park lasagna where like there's just layers of things on top of each other.
And then in the land, of course, you've got your Mario Kart ride, which is Bowser. Is it Koopa Cup?
Mario. It's
Why am I blank on the name?
Mario Kart. Well, I think you're blanking on it because it's called something different in Japan.
Oh.
Because Bowser is, I think, like the American name for him. He's King Koopa, I think, in Japanese. But there's not like a proper translation. I don't know. There's no proper translation for Bowser. It's
Anyways, Mario Kart ride.
Isn't the Koopa Cup Challenge or Mario Kart?
That's what it is.
King Koopa's Challenge? King Koopa's Challenge? I don't know. We're butchering this.
Or is it Bowser's Challenge? Oh my god, this is awful.
I'm going to look it up real quick because I'm
We're going to look
sure
it up. In the meantime, I'm going to talk a little bit about what it is.
The problem is that it has different names in both of the installations.
So, of course, you're going to have your restaurant, which will be themed. It'll be Toad's Cafe, which is going to be just like the one in Hollywood and the one in Osaka, where it's Toad's little restaurant.
In the United States, it's Mario Kart Bowser's
Challenge, and the other one is Koopa Cup,
and the other one Koopa's Challenge. So that's the thing.
God, okay, well, you know, that makes sense.
Yeah, so one is Koopa's Challenge, the other is Bowser's Challenge.
So we're going to have Bowser's Challenge here then.
Yeah.
Again, it's a kind of like an artificial intelligence kind of augmented reality ride where you wear goggles to have projections and your interactive game elements projected on actual dark ride scenes. Really cool. The feedback has been a little bit...
for this ride are really nice.
Yeah, well, the scenes are really nice, but I feel like the feedback for the ride at the other locations have been mixed because some people are expecting speed for a Mario Kart ride, which I understand, but since the augmented reality is supposed to do all that for you anyway,
it's more of a motion simulator.
Because it's different.
It's a tracked motion simulator.
With hella dark ride scenes.
Part of the motion simulation component is the AR goggles, so I think the only reason the reviews for the ride have been mixed is because people invented their own expectations for the ride, but Universal never said that it was a thrill ride. In fact, it makes perfect sense. Like, the ride that it is exactly, I think, the ride that it needs to be, because it needs to be a shooter. It's a video game. It's Mario Kart. Like, it needs to be an interactive dark ride type thing, and it's hard to do a shooting dark ride and a roller coaster, because as we've seen with, like, Wonder Mountain Guardian or even Primordial, like, it's done with mixed success, and sometimes it's just better for it to be one thing or the other. Plus, it doesn't need to be a roller coaster. We're doing Donkey Kong Country gets to be the roller coaster component of the area anyway.
And there's not a tracked ride anyway.
Joshi.
Not really roller coaster either, but yeah, there's Joshi.
You know that's not spelled right.
I spelled it incorrectly on the show notes, and that's completely fine. So yeah, you get the Yoshi ride, which is an outdoor tracked kind of like themed dark ride.
And you get to sit on Yoshi's back.
The cool thing is they're already installing a bunch of the Yoshi theming for it. The track itself has been installed, but it's covered up for construction purposes. Nothing can drop on it and damage it. But it'll be kind of cool. It's just something else to do, I guess. Yeah. It won't be like super spectacular, but just something else to do.
A nice compliment to Mario Kart.
I feel like it's almost more fun off-ride seeing all the Yoshis go by.
Yeah. It's like themed entertainment that you can ride. It's giving High in the Sky Sue's Trolley Tram Ride. Or even like its original iteration, the Sylvester Monkey McBean's Very Unusual Driving Machines, where it just operated as scenery pieces for several years because they couldn't get approval from the state to open the ride. So now we have like a ride that is doing double duty as like an atmospheric embellishment, but it's also a ride. It's not a long ride at all, but you move through it really slowly, so the ride duration is not terrible. Capacity is probably decent, but not crazy good or anything. And it has an interactive component too. There's like buttons in the vehicle or something.
Yeah, I think that the biggest thing is just to have something. You know, it's almost like having the Navi River to your Flight of Passage.
Absolutely.
Having something else to do.
Perfect analogy.
And so,
and the scenes for this look really cute.
Oh yeah, it's very picturesque.
Like really
it's
cute
very
ride.
like I'm like riding the games, which I think is obviously the whole point of the Nintendo world anyway. And then what I'm probably most excited for is actually Donkey Kong Country, which I don't even have that much of an association with Donkey Kong personally.
Dude, as a child playing Donkey Kong Country and doing the minecart
I actually never played
levels.
that. I played like every freaking Mario thing under the sun, but I never played
the minecart levels in Donkey Kong were iconic. And as a roller coaster kid from Inception, I was like so into those levels because they were roller coaster like. So this is a wonderful full circle moment for any roller coaster enthusiast that's also been a fan of the Donkey Kong games.
So do you want to explain exactly how Donkey Kong works and what kind of is the gimmick about it for those that are listening and aren't exactly familiar with the concept yet?
So the Donkey Kong roller coaster it's called a boom coaster, and the boom is like, in the sense, not like an explosion boom, but like an arm of sorts. You have the roller coasters attached to a heavy-duty boom pole that is attached to the track via a single-rail-esque vertical wheel assembly. Think like a steeplechase coaster, where it's got like the giant sideways wheel bogies, but then you're sitting on a vehicle that is suspended over the track via this boom arm. And then they have a decorative track underneath the vehicle that is full of, like, damage, breaks, little hops and things. In the video game, you have to jump in your vehicle to clear gaps in the track or to navigate over or around bad guys. And so by having decorative track underneath the boom coaster vehicle, it mimics these track jumping maneuvers from the video game and should provide a really interesting, like, unique ride experience, something dynamic and visually satisfying. I think it's going to be, I mean, assuming that it's not a total disaster because it's a prototype, and assuming that the capacity doesn't become just a huge nightmare. That's the one thing. It's 4 passengers per vehicle. It's basically got wild mouse capacity.
Yeah, so I think the concept is super cool, and like especially how it's gonna be like half indoor, half outdoor. It's gonna be like in the mines, the outdoor scenes.
Like it's
gonna have a lift hill and a
yeah.
launch. There's just a lot that's really cool. But I think the reason that I'm kind of keeping my excitement to myself is, first of all, capacity is not great. Let's not lie about it. It seems like it's a technologically pretty advanced roller coaster, but I also think we're gonna see a lot of downtime. The company that's manufacturing the launch system is also the company that was responsible for Lightning Rod's launch system. I don't want to get my hopes up on it running smoothly. I want to get my hopes up on it being an easy access ride. At the end of the day, it's not going to be that long of a ride, all things considered, because of kind of the way that it's built. It's a lot more focused on shorter, more impactful thematic moments than I think it is on like an overall ride length or roller coaster length. So I think it's going to be a cool experience. But how long do I have to wait for it? Is it going to be broken down half the day? Is it going to be pain in the butt to get virtual queue for it? All those questions are kind of circling in my head. And so despite me being very excited for it, and they're already doing testing, I've got a lot of thematic elements up. The exterior paint is already done. It's moving ahead quickly. I just don't know if I want to get my hopes up on getting on it when it opens. Does that make sense?
I feel like what I'm expecting from this ride is like how I feel about Seven Dwarfs Mine Train at Magic Kingdom, where I think it's one of my favorite rides on the resort. It's one of the best rides on property, and it's unique and clever and super well done. But the line for it will almost always be longer than I care to wait for it, because even though I really love it, I don't ever feel like waiting an hour and a half for. Yeah, so I'm expecting, for me, Seven Dwarfs Mine Train rules applying, where like I will ride it a couple of times and I will love it, and I will ride it with family when they're visiting, but it's not going to be a ride that like as a pass holder I'm going to be doing much, because I don't expect myself to be wanting to wait in the line that this ride will inevitably have, or
right.
whatever system that they're using. If they're doing a virtual queue, like whatever it is, like it's not going to be pretty. Like the only saving grace is that this ride is opening alongside an entire theme park with many super high capacity attractions and several rides that are going to be workhorse rides that
and perhaps even better rides,
and possibly better attractions too. The one that's really going to be funny is when it opens in Japan as a brand new ride all by itself.
But they've been doing virtual queue and timed entry for a long time now, since Bar opened. I think that'll.
But it's like having to do timed entry for Wizarding World and having like Fast Pass and stuff, having to resort to their measures for rides that are already pretty high capacity, like Forbidden Journey. the fact that now they will be opening this ride as a new attraction with the capacity being so incredibly low, it's just going to be...
Well, I'm hoping it's not as
expect it
low
to
as
be difficult.
we're talking about it right now, but I guess again, realistically seeing it fire out trains at the speed that I think...
I guess the way that it works is, like,
Yeah.
they will be able to send a lot of cars really close together because the blocks will be
Super short.
short sections, hopefully, like...
And in the dark rides, you can always put rides right behind each other. So who knows? Maybe it won't be as bad. But that's the whole point. It's like going with expectations that it's, it can always be better this way. And I do want to, before we wrap up this area, I do want to say that Super Nintendo World, I think, is actually the inspiration behind the whole concept of the park. Because that is, perhaps that and Diagon Alley. I must give credit to Diagon Alley as well. Because of the whole portal thing. Obviously, the pipe for Super Nintendo World is a no-brainer. And having, the moving bricks for Diagon Alley is obviously a no-brainer. But
having that big reveal moment, the big, like, aha moment.
That's definitely
like when you go into
Diagon,
Rookburg.
Right? Yeah.
And Phantasialand.
Perhaps you need to credit Diagon for that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So now let's move on to our next area, which is the Dark Universe. Themed after the Universal Classic Monsters or Classic Universal Monsters, whichever way you want to say that. This entrance or the entry portal to this land is going to be like dark rock work with these tree trunks kind of like on it too, kind of eerie.
Mangled trees and mechanical components.
And the cool thing is that despite it also being kind of a franchise, there is still, I think, a little more liberty here on what they're going to be including in it because there's so many franchises that are kind of rolling into one land. Because I guess technically we're going into the village of Darkmoor.
Yeah, which is totally fictional. Yeah.
It's fictional. Okay, cool.
Yeah, and like none of these characters exist in the same universe. So like even this is the only area where like even inside of its own area we are bridging several universes together, like timelines and stuff. Like Dracula and Frankenstein are different stories from different authors, and even their Universal movie adaptations don't take place in each other's contexts. They're completely independent storylines. It's not like these guys are happening concurrently or even within the same 100 years or something. So they're taking liberties to do something that incorporates all of these characters in the same timeline for whatever justifiable reason they have. And I'm curious to see what it is.
I'm excited too. It's going to allow them to have some freedom there on what they want to combine and how they're going to combine it. First things first, we mentioned the Whitmill with the quick service and the How to Train Your Dragon, Isle of Berk. There's another one here that is called the Burning Blade Tavern. So I guess it has to do with the fact that the Whitmill was once on fire.
Yeah, the blades of the
from whatever franchise that is from. If you know, leave a comment.
It's the Frankenstein. It's the climax of Frankenstein bit.
Never mind. Okay, there's an answer. No need to leave a comment anymore. And then the first ride there, which is not the biggest ride, but it's going to be a max spinning coaster, I believe even extreme spinner. But it's not going to be very extreme though.
But yeah, it's definitely a family spin. It's a tiny ride, family spinner layout coaster.
Themed to the Wolfman.
Maybe it'll have the extreme spinner vehicles, but I'd be surprised if it didn't just have like
the smaller vehicles,
the basic spinner coaster vehicles.
So
like
I guess
Sierra
the cool thing
Sidewinder.
about this ride is, if I'm not mistaken, it has a dual station as well, right?
Yeah.
And then it's going to have like a launch, 2 or 3 elements, nothing much. And it has kind of like a mid-ride section, which is like in the barn.
Yeah.
Where it'll shuttle, like have a show scene.
Enclosed.
And then shuttle.
Mid-ride swing launch.
And then go through and do 2 or 3 elements and then finish. It's not a very long ride, but it's going to be themed to being in the forest. The queue is going to go all around it. And I think it's a nice supporting act to what will be perhaps the best dark ride in the land.
Yeah.
Or in the park.
In the land as in Florida.
As in the land.
In the lands.
Because I am super excited for their dark ride, which is called Monsters Unchained, The Frankenstein Experience. It's like Harry Potter and Forbidden Journey. No, actually, it's like Hagrid's Magical Creatures Motorbike Adventure, but for this park. So Monsters Unchained, The Frankenstein Experience.
That's a lot.
Which is a dark ride similar to Forbidden Journey using the Kuka arms. But this time there won't be any domes. There'll be no screens. It's going to all be physical sets only, which I'm so excited for. So the ride vehicles are going to be a lot more open air, so you can look all around you versus just in a direction.
Sounds expensive.
It sounds expensive. I'm so excited. It's going to be like a European village. Frankenstein and all of his unchained monsters are in there, whatever that means. All exciting. I'm really excited for that, and I think that the Kuka Arm application is so perfect for a dark ride because we've mentioned in countless episodes now, it's like you're always front row, you're in the action, it is 360 surrounding by the action, you're dangling above in the scenes. It doesn't get much better than that. I'm honestly amazed that Disney has never done anything like it. Maybe it's because they don't have maybe exclusivity on it. I don't know. And the one thing I think is kind of funny is that the Kuka Arm application, like Hogwarts, Forbidden Journey, it's kind of like a darkish, castle-y, gothic vibe, and then boom, we're doing it again. If it's a Kuka ride, it's gonna have to have it
has to be very.
It's gonna have to be kind of gothic and dark.
I kind of like that. The only other Kuka Arm ride is that one at the Warner Brothers theme park in Abu Dhabi, and it's like all of the villains converging together and just like utter sheer chaos happening, and it's all the monsters are converging together, ushering in chaos.
So one thing I'm kind of envisioning is if you've ever done the Universal Studios Hollywood Studio Tour, you go through what they call the Little Europe section of the backlot, and that's where they filmed a lot of the monsters movies like Dracula and Frankenstein and whatnot, like all the pitchforks and the fire, whatever, in the European village. That's what I'm envisioning now, like a European village, like that part of the backlot where they filmed the good place, except for they painted all the buildings to look a little cuter. Imagine that kind of, cobblestone streets and just kind of going through that and having all this stuff happen, perhaps being in some sort of castle. I mean, is Frankenstein in the castle at any point? Maybe I'll see the burning windmill. I want everything.
Fairness, I have not watched the movie. I've only read the book.
Imagine a
Dracula
scene,
has a castle.
Imagine a scene like the Whomping Willow, but really it's the freaking windmill on fire and then you get swung away.
I don't
think
the windmill fire is going to be in the ride, is it? Because it's also outside of the ride.
Yeah, but
in the area.
Yeah, but like you can be in Hogwarts.
I guess it could be both.
Outside and also inside.
And inside too.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
Anyway, I'm like real excited.
Yeah,
I guess we'll have to see. And that's not a great thing. We won't really know what's going to happen because unlike all the other franchises, this is going to be like whatever they want to do.
This area of the park is going to be my favorite because Nintendo's going to be really cute, but it's also, it's definitely an aesthetic that is a lot. And I love Mario games. Like I am a Nintendo purist. I don't really even play video games that aren't Nintendo. Chiefly Mario, but I'm looking forward to the photorealism of the Dark Universe and like sophisticated elements that will call back things like Lost Continent at Islands of Adventure because Universal has shown us time and time again that they can do the larger than life fantasy over the top colorful thing. They're doing Nintendo, they're doing DreamWorks, they're doing Minions. Like we're getting a lot of the.
Well, can they do it?
Yeah,
listen to our episode. Armchair
they're
Imagineering.
able to do it, and Nintendo is like the best version of it, and so that's great. But
anyway,
Dark Universe, I'm the most excited about.
Listen to Armchair Imagineering, Universal Studios Florida. That episode, also season 5, and we got a couple of things to say about it, whether or not they're good at it. But Epic Universe looks promising, and definitely Dark Universe.
We need to give them credit for deciding that instead of doing an outdoor amphitheater, they built a 5th roller coaster.
Oh, for sure.
Because Wolfman was supposed to be a theater, but I think they took a look at like all the dormant theaters at the rest of the resort. Islands of Adventure doesn't have a lot of dead space, but 3 dead space. The 3 areas of that park that need adjustment are honestly the 3 theater venues. Poseidon,
they
Sinbad.
didn't need an extra theater because you already have the Fountain Theater. You already have the Dragon Theater.
Yeah.
And then there's going to be another theater in the next area we're discussing.
Oh, yes. Perfect
which
segue.
is the Wizarding World of Harry Potter. The Ministry of Magic. Finally, it's coming. I think overall of an area, this is going to be like the grandest anticipation.
This is the one.
Because we've been wanting the Ministry of Magic since the inception of an idea of the universe of Harry Potter in a theme park. And
it was part of the original conversation
getting it.
With Gringotts and Hogwarts, and now it's finally coming.
Exactly.
It's finally
a major themed land that's mostly indoor in Florida is a very welcomed concept. Nothing better than the Ministry of Magic. And it's going to be a stage show. We just don't know what it is, but it's going to be inside the British Ministry of Magic. Take a step back. The entrance to the land, which will be the Port Saint Denis arch that is from Paris, and
it's really like 2 areas.
It's like 2 areas. In fact, I kind of listed it as like 3 areas
because you get Paris, outside.
Yeah, so that's going to be like from the Fantastic Beasts movies. You have the Wizarding Paris and the Ministry of Magic in Paris. That's all outside. That's the majority of the lands outside, which is honestly quite large. It's like several streets, lots of vantage points.
It's like
dining, shopping. The wand experiences.
It's like as big as Diagon Alley and Hogsmeade combined.
Exactly, and then there's an additional land within the land, not just like Nocturne Alley, and like it's massive. They're going to find some magically creative way to transport you from Wizarding World Paris in the time frame of the Roaring 20s Fantastic Beasts franchise, and then transport you into the modern day Wizarding World of Harry Potter British Ministry of Magic across the pond, taking the channel, the Flute Network.
The Flute Channel.
The Flute Channel.
The Flutal.
A little background here. The main reason that it happened that way is because originally this was supposed to be a Fantastic Beasts land with a Fantastic Beasts ride. If you've seen the Fantastic Beasts movies, a lot of it takes place in the French and British Ministry of Magic. Given that the Fantastic Beasts franchise was less than ideally successful, and Hagrid showed that everyone still very much cares about Harry Potter and his friends, they shifted that back to Harry Potter. And I support that.
Yeah, I do too.
That's my kind of magic.
You gotta do what works.
Although
there's something to be said for like the areas of this section, the components of this section that are still intact from the Fantastic Beasts storyline, I think will serve their purpose of like maybe helping tell the story, get people interested, and reintroduce. But it's kind of like the Tron effect, like. Neither of the Tron movies are particularly successful or particularly good, but they're amazing, objectively, if you're a fan. And by building a Tron roller coaster, suddenly people are interested in a franchise that, like, was neither that much of a critical darling, nor was it, like, a commercial success.
Okay, I love Tron, though.
But we love Tron. Tron is our guilty pleasure. We love Tron. But there's a reason why, like, the first time that they developed Tron for Magic Kingdom, they canceled it.
And then, again, Harry Potter carries, obviously, the name and the title. And I think maybe it wasn't even that difficult to shift what they had already planned and change it into a Harry Potter ride. Just how the concept for Disneyland Paris is potential Star Wars original, like, the Galaxy's Edge was actually to just shift and make Rise of Resistance themed to Darth Vader. Like, I'm sure there's ways to shift stuff around and still make it work quite well.
Plus,
and I think that's what's happening here.
I think that they can get Daniel Radcliffe back on board. Like, he's...
That's possible, because I think he's working with Warner Brothers for that Harry Potter streaming show. So if
I'm not mistaken, Daniel Radcliffe is back on board with reprising his role as Harry Potter.
Now he's done a bunch of other stuff.
So, but there was a time there where they couldn't get him. Like, during the development of Diagon Alley, he was distancing himself from it all, but it kind of came full circle. He had to prove to himself that he's not just the guy from Harry Potter. Now he's Weird Al. That's like his new legacy, is portraying Weird Al.
Oh, really?
In the Weird Al Yankovic biopic that was like amazing. Apparently,
I was remembering from Now You See Me, Now You Don't, which has a roller coaster too, by the way.
Really? Also, he was in that Divine Angels comedy with Steve Buscemi. Anyway, in any case.
So let's go inside. So into the British Ministry of Magic. First of all, the overall building and the show building and the theater all combined is by far the largest show building setup.
It's huge.
Of anything at the Universal Orlando Resort, larger than Gringotts, larger than whatever anything else has to offer, which is a cool start.
The only show building in Orlando bigger than this building is probably Cosmic Rewind. If even bigger. Maybe taller, but... So Ministry of Magic and how they're going to work their magic in this is, if anyone is familiar with the franchise, it is very stark black brick interior with red balconies and windows, and then it kind of just goes on forever. And so how they're going to do that is they're going to build almost like a full scale entry hall, and then they're going to build like a forced perspective kind of way up to the ceiling where it looks like it's very tall with a big fountain and a flying mill, all that kind of stuff. And then it's going to be one of those LED screens, much like the Bourne Sterntacular, super modern, incredibly crisp LED screen that's going to make it appear as if that Ministry of Magic goes on forever, while in reality it's just a wall, right? And then within the British Ministry of Magic is where the queue and ride are going to be located, which, as of right now, if we're not mistaken, it's kind of like a Trackless Dark ride. We don't exactly know the details of the ride. It's been prescribed by people inside as
kind of like a Trackless Dark Ride, maybe not entirely. Universal historically hasn't really done Trackless Dark Ride, so I'm not sure what exactly we can expect, but there's also been talk about moving elevators and moving pieces.
It sounds like they're
moving it around.
It sounds a little bit like some of the technology that they used for Guardians of the Galaxy Mission Breakout, where like the screens move in unison with the vehicle to help build that depth perception, so that it doesn't look like you're staring at a flat screen.
Right. And there's so much that's going to happen on that ride that I think we can already kind of tell it's going to happen based on, especially the fifth movie, where they spend a lot of time in the Ministry of Magic, especially towards the end of the movie with all the glass balls coming in, and the fight between the Order of the Phoenix and the Death Eaters. Lots is going to happen, and I think that makes me so incredibly excited because I still remember I was on vacation in America and I went to IMAX 3D, and this is before all the movies were entirely 3D. It was one of those points where like the glasses started flashing on the screen. You had to put your IMAX glasses on, and then you had like 20 to 30 minutes of the end of the movie that was in 3D or something. And I still remember we were on vacation in Los Angeles and had my first ever What's a Pretzel.
Wetzel!
Which you'll appreciate.
Wetzel!
And it was right by the airport. It was right in Westchester, like where they built those apartments right by the on-ramp.
Oh, yeah, where we used to do Dave & Buster's.
Exactly, right there. So we went to see the fifth movie, Order of the Phoenix, in IMAX. And I put on my glasses. Still remember all the glass balls would like fall, and like all the crashing of the glass. Yeah. And then that in 3D, I was like, it's so cool. And I'm really, really, really hoping, and I'm actually kind of expecting that to be a scene in the ride.
Yeah, it's begging to be recreated the same way that the Gringotts,
especially with those new level screens
and stuff, are happening. It's like it begs to be done.
And then I don't exactly know because a lot of the Ministry of Magic going around it means using the elevators that go sideways and upwards and downwards. I don't know if that's going to be simulated or if it's going to be an actual physical elevator system, almost like Rise of the Resistance, because the ride is supposedly 2 stories, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
So.
That makes sense.
It's like the first time touching elevators. Like Transformers uses elevators,
right?
So I would kind of like
that. The funny
thing
about Transformers is like they don't even use the elevators as like a thematic moment.
They do on the way down.
On the way down,
yeah.
But when you're going up, your sequence of events is like a distraction from the fact that you're going up. You're not even supposed to know that it's happening. For this one, you'll know, kind of like Rise of the Resistance, where you go up and it's a very cleverly woven in necessity that they've passed off as a plot device.
So smart.
Yeah.
So that's going to be really cool. And then what's even more fascinating is, especially we recently talked about really wanting that expansion to Diagon Alley happening. It looks like that is actually pretty much moved over or even canceled, but most likely gets moved over to Wizarding World of Harry Potter at Epic Universe, and that is going to be the expansion pad, which the expansion pad, as of right now, is actually looking like it's going to be developed before the park even opens. So as of now, we're looking at summer 2025 opening of Universal Epic Universe, and then there is a planned opening of the expansion pad for the Wizarding World for 2026. I don't know what we can expect. I don't exactly know what all the options are. I mean, the indoor roller coaster will be a cute look, but who am I to decide on that? But either way, it's going to be cool that we're going to probably see construction for it before Epic Universe even opens. That's kind of sick.
Yeah.
Like, we love a good Phase 2 for the year after,
Yeah, I'm excited for it to just... Yeah, sometimes the Phase 2 stuff can be some of the best, most important stuff. I mean, sometimes it's Flying Unicorn and Stormforce Accelerator, but sometimes it's Back to the Future.
You know what? And for all we know, Phase 2 is already being constructed right now, because when you open a brand new theme park, I just feel like inevitably there's going to be something that's not working opening year.
That's true. Oh, yeah, and
Donkey Kong comes to mind.
Some stuff is accidentally, I was going to say, some stuff is inadvertently part of Phase 2. Like when Universal Studios Florida first opened, it was like, well, they had 4 rides for Phase 1, but only 2 of them worked. So they kind of, and then like they got the other one, they got Confrontation online, and then they built Back to the Future, and then Jaws by like 1994 like was finally cooperating. But yeah.
So let's look at the park overall and kind of talk about some of the things that we're excited for or that we're not as excited for. I think we'll start with things that I'm kind of mad about or what I think could be improved from what I'm hearing right now. There's not a whole lot. Because this is one of those theme parks that they're just going to build, and it's going to be like full of stuff already. Like, I mean, we're talking 5 roller coasters. We're talking we're talking 3 e-ticket roller coaster. I mean, e-ticket dark rides.
Yeah.
Like top of class, augmented reality, complete physical sets, perhaps even trackless moving, LED screen dark ride. I mean, it's going to be, let's say 3 of the coolest dark rides in the world will be here. Apparently, originally Jurassic World from Beijing was actually designed to also be the Epic Universe, but it makes sense that they're not going to put Jurassic World in 2 parks.
Yeah.
So that's fine.
Apparently that was developed before they even knew what they were going to do with Velocicoaster, and like if that was going to be...
For all intents and purposes, Velocicoaster could have been a flying dinosaur, could have been just generic.
Yeah.
Because in Japan, Flying Dinosaur, despite coming out after Jurassic World became a thing as a movie franchise, it was just still like a generic Jurassic Park roller coaster. Now I wonder if, on the topic of Osaka, if they're going to turn Flying Dinosaur into Jurassic World.
I could see them like retconning it, but I could also see them like... Well, Flying Dinosaur is probably going to stay the same, but River Adventure is probably going to become Jurassic World.
Yeah. But they work together. I mean, it works fine in Florida, even though, obviously...
I could see them having originally been tempted to keep the Jurassic Park area in Islands of Adventure just Jurassic Park, and then doing Jurassic World in the new gate and keeping the timelines
That's
separate.
what I was thinking. That's why I'm a little surprised that they didn't. But
I could also, with Epic Universe, it's like there was 4 other... Well, 5 really, if you count the hub, like things that were worth doing, and the Jurassic Park area in Islands of Adventure needed so much work anyway that it really needed Velocicoaster badly. And
I just feel like you can design a ride like Jurassic World and Universal Studios Beijing and then not bring it elsewhere.
Yeah,
but you know what? There's always maybe Portaventura. That's a whole different episode.
Oh yeah,
whole different story.
Buckle up.
Buckle up. What are you most excited for, though? Like, what are you most excited for? I know we kind of already mentioned it a little bit.
I think there's a lot of things I'm excited for. All of the major roller coasters I'm excited for. Some more than others. I'm cautiously excited for like Donkey Kong because I am worried that it's going to be a hot mess. I guess I'm also cautiously excited for Starfall Racers because I don't expect it to be better than Velocicoaster. And even still, I may still be disappointed with, like, I don't know how the forces are going to feel. I don't know how the launchers are going to feel. It doesn't have, like, the same... I don't know if it's going to accomplish the same things that Velocicoaster has already accomplished on a thematic level.
No, thematically, honestly, it's a little weak.
The dueling aspect of it could really compensate for that. But I would say, objectively, what I'm most excited for sure, is the Monsters Unchained, for me.
Yeah, so I think for myself, I'm a little cautious about Starfall Racers, like you said. First of all, thematically, it's honestly not a whole lot going on. I don't have a consistent experience with Mac where I'm like, wow, everything they build is always great. In fact, I just don't know. Like, there are some Mac rides where I'm like in love, and some Mac rides where I'm like, okay, it's cool, but it's not like incredible. I do like the Blue Fire clones. If it's going to kind of ride like that, it may be pretty good. I hope the launches are stronger than the usual Mac launches. You know, stuff like that I'm thinking about. But overall, I'm excited for like a hyper-sized coaster that's going to be dueling. It's going to be cool from a coaster nerd perspective, not thematically, I think, though it may have a nice aesthetic. What I am very, very excited for is, like you mentioned, like particularly the Monsters Unchained, the Frankenstein Experience Dark Ride, because everyone that's been listening to this podcast knows that I'm a complete Forbidden Journey nerd.
Yeah.
Love that ride. I think it's the coolest ride system. I think it works the best doing it, but in all physical scenes, I mean, count me in. And then I just know that anything Harry Potter is going to be quality.
Yeah, they have no choice. They
have like a contractual obligation to make it the best themed experience in whatever park it's in, or whatever, however it's worded by Warner Brothers and J.K. Rowling. So I know it's going to be a good quality. I know that having the Ministry Magic has been a dream for so many, including myself. So I'm really excited for that. And it's kind of fun because I don't exactly know what we're going to get. You know, because it's like a new Potter ride.
Yeah.
You can kind of figure out what they're going to do on Hagrid because it's all outdoor and they were building it. You know, so it was kind of obvious to kind of figure out.
I guess I would say the indoor rides are the ones that I'm most excited about.
I have no clue.
Those are the ones that are going to be the hardest to predict.
Exactly. So yeah, and honestly, like a year and a half from now, it seems like far away in a way, but also kind of quick. I can't wait to hopefully maybe even soft open it as a pass holder or as media, whatever, however, which way we get it. And maybe soft open it, it'd be really cool. But either way, super excited for Epic Universe. And to all of our listeners, I hope you had an epic time listening to this epic preview of Epic Universe.
You're so cheesy.
No, babe. And then make sure to please give us a rating on Apple Podcasts or Spotify if you're listening. We'd appreciate 5 stars. Help us grow. Share the podcast with the theme park loving family nerds or your Orlando vacation family and friends, anything. You can also find us on Threads, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, Facebook, and of course, thecoasterkings.com. This is Sean.
This is Alex.
And thank you for listening to the Coast Kings Radio, and we'll see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.